Well, in Queensland, the death toll from the devastating floods has climbed to 20. 10 people are still missing. But the number of fatalities almost certainly would have been higher if not for the skill and bravery of emergency and military rescue teams. Their skills were put to their ultimate test last Tuesday when helicopter crews had to contend with not only the so-called inland tsunami, but also one of the fiercest storms they'd ever seen. Peter McCutcheon reports.
This is the easy part. Army Black Hawk and Navy Sea King helicopters moving people and supplies between Brisbane and the devastated Lockyer Valley. But 6 days ago, these pilots and crew faced the toughest job of their lives.
I have been flying for about 20 years. It was the worst weather I've ever flown in.
The massive body of water that swept through the Lockyer Valley late last Monday put hundreds of lives at risk. Emergency Management Queensland helicopters winched people to safety on the Monday, but the following morning nature didn't let up. A series of ferocious storms descended on a valley already in turmoil, and the call for help went out to the Australian Defence Force.
We knew something dramatic was happening on the range, but we didn't quite appreciate what, and I don't think anyone really did.
With visibility down to 800 metres, Navy Sea King pilot Commander Paul Mogger says he was pushed to the limit.
It actually took us about 3 hours to get into a position where we could actually do some work because the weather was just so appalling.
2 Sea King and 2 Black Hawk helicopters winched dozens of people to safety and evacuated hundreds more in conditions almost beyond comprehension.
What we were fronted with was probably in areas 1 kilometre to 2 kilometres wide of rapidly moving water. It was not still and gentle like a dam or a picture or a postcard. This was more like Niagara Falls type flow. You know, I've seen some fairly turbulent sea states in the Southern Ocean, down Antarctica way over the years, big sea states. And this was probably, the water here, the way it was moving, the speed it was moving, would have been equally as frightening as the angriest ocean I've seen.
Petty Officer Nick Anderson dangled on a wire from his aircraft in the midst of a tempest, following the path of a man swept down a rapid at the rate of nearly 30 knots.
We watched him crash into a tree, and to his credit, he grabbed hold of the tree and didn't let go. And that's when we were able to basically manoeuvre the aircraft with myself below it and get in a position to recover the guy and bring him back into the aircraft.
So he would have smashed into a tree at 25, 30 knots?
Yeah, he did. He, from what I could see, he was a pretty fit guy, and he was holding on to that tree as you could imagine, he wasn't going to let it go.
The devastation below reminded Army Black Hawk Airman Warrant Officer Tony Young of his time several years earlier in Aceh, Indonesia.
It's very, very similar. This one's a lot more closer to home, but the devastation, it just reminds me so much of the Boxing Day tsunami and what it was like over there. So.
But what makes the Lockyer disaster so challenging for the crew of this Black Hawk is that they all live nearby.
We live in Toowoomba, it's only just down the range. I travel around here all the time, so yeah, it is. And to see the place like this is quite amazing.
My family's up there at the moment, so it's very close to home for me. This is like our backyard, I suppose. So you feel a little bit more.
Warrant Officer Young shot to national attention with this photograph during an evacuation of the township of Forest Hill, when he noticed a woman struggling to hold a baby, whom he later discovered was her grandchild.
As she was coming out to the aircraft, she was trying to carry the child, and the child was slipping into the mud. I went out there, grabbed the baby off her, and held the baby and brought her into the aircraft. The day actually reminded me of my son. I just thought of him, and I'd hate it to happen to him, to any child, and any person for that fact.
Nearly a week after the rescues and the storm, there are still people missing. 200 military officers and more than 100 police today carried out the grisly but necessary task of searching the debris and wreckage for bodies.
It's massive scale, and you know, the degree of devastation is so significant that you know, anything I say here would really be quite understated.
Although nothing was going to stop the huge wall of water, emergency and military rescue crews did stop the death toll from rising. But with so much work still to be done, there's no time for reflection.
There was one winch we did which was right on last light, just sort of getting dark and it was very hard to see. We ended up going on to night vision goggles, and that was 6 people, that one that we pulled off the roof of the house. So
6 people whose lives you saved?
I suppose, yep. I sort of haven't really looked at it like that. I suppose I haven't really had time to sort of sit down and reflect on the whole thing, but you could say that.
Extraordinary deeds by some courageous servicemen there. Peter McCutcheon with that report.